welcome to my channel. I'm a music teacher and I've been composing for a very long time. My goal with this video is to help people just get started with composing in a way that's not overwhelming, that doesn't make you watch a long explanation about chords and other music theory terms, just something to get started. I will say it'll be helpful for this video if you do know how to read sheet music. So I'm going to be using a music notation software called Noteflight, which is just an electronic way of writing down sheet music, and I'm going to be using the piano on that. But if you just have staff paper and an instrument with you and you want to compose that way, that's fine. That's how I started out. So I'm going to show you how I would go about writing a simple melody with harmony. And first, I'm going to start with harmony because that's my favorite part. So with harmony, you have chords, and generally speaking, chords are a collection of 3 or more notes. Sometimes you'll hear them sounding all at the same time, like this, and sometimes it'll be one after another, like that. Another thing to know about chords is if the notes are very close to each other, it's going to be more of a crunchy sound, like that. And if you give them a little bit of space, so that way they're all on the lines or they're all on the spaces, you're going to get a sound that's more like what you're used to. I'm going to do 4 chords. I'll do this one, that one, some version of that. It can be random for right now. I really do like composing by just writing something down and then going from there. Having something, even if it's not great, at least gives you tools to work with. I don't love this last one, so I'm going to change it a little bit. Let's see how that sounds. I like that better. One thing to remember is that you don't have to have all of this musical knowledge to know if something sounds good or bad. Good or bad is subjective. It is your opinion. And if you've listened to any music at all in your life, you probably have some opinions about it. So use them. If you hear something that you don't like, change it. So I'm going to work with these chords and I want to break them up a little bit just to make the rhythm more interesting. So these are all the same notes from the first chord, A, C, and E. The octave doesn't really matter, it's just up to whatever I want to do. And I'm going to do 2 bars of that in a row. Now I'm going to do the second bar, F, A, and C. And now E, G, B. And then D, F sharp, A. And I might do something different for this last bar. At this point, I want to hear what it's sounding like. Get rid of this because I don't need it anymore. This bass line is kind of all over the place. Mostly what I've tried to do is make sure that the space between the notes where the chord changes, so here it changes from A, C, E to the F, A, C chord. I've tried to make sure that that distance isn't too great. You can hear how awkward it starts to sound if I make a bigger difference. So listen to this. Versus I would say that the second change is smoother, which is generally what I'm trying to do, but the first change could still work, and maybe you even preferred how that sounded, and that's fine. That's why something that you write is going to sound different than what I write. So I'm going for smoothness, and because of that, I want to have the last note in this bar lead seamlessly into this one. You'll notice this one's not part of the chord. That's fine, it doesn't have to be. I personally don't like having notes that repeat when I'm starting a new chord. Having 2 A's in a row would not be the end of the world, but I prefer it the other way. And now we start writing the melody. A very easy way to start writing the melody is to just choose a note from the chord and make that part of the melody. So for example, I have A, C, and E in this chord, so boom, I'll put an A up here. A C, an F, a C, E, a B, D, and an F sharp. Sure, let's see what that sounds like. And that's fine so far. That might get boring to listen to, so I'll make some more changes. From this point, an easier way to start getting a more interesting melody is to add in what we call passing tones. So for example, A and C, there's a note that fits in between them. So maybe instead of having that big leap, I'll throw an extra note in between. And you'll notice that this B is not part of the chord, but that doesn't matter. I think it makes it sound a little bit more interesting without being too out of place. For example, if I made this a B flat, that might start getting a little bit too crunchy for what I'm going for with this nice, gentle chord progression. Let's add some passing tones here, see if that sounds good. Yeah, I like that. You don't need passing tones between every note that's spaced apart. Something that makes music interesting is the contrast between motion and stillness. If you had a piece where the notes were just fast the whole time, that would just start to get exhausting to listen to. And so you'll notice in a lot of fast pieces that there's moments where it suddenly goes slower, or there's some sort of pause, or maybe they stay on one chord for a little while. So contrast is good. Another thing that makes music interesting to listen to is actually repetition. And repetition can take a whole lot of forms. It can be either exact notes, it can be rhythms, it can be repeating the distance between certain notes. So what I'm going to do for these next 4 bars is maybe repeat the rhythm from the first 4. Let's see what that sounds like. I don't know if I like that, so I'll change it. I read a quote a long time ago that said something along the lines of, when you're a composer, you have 2 tools, a pencil and an eraser, and you should use both equally. And that's part of why I like using the notation software. If we write something on a piece of paper, we tend to get a little bit more attached to it versus something where I can just suddenly delete. All right, I've made a little change. I like to listen to the things that I'm writing a lot just to see if it makes sense as a whole. And if anything doesn't sit well with me, I'll usually try a few things out and see if I can change it. And already right there, we have something that sounds like music. Most of us probably want to write a longer piece of music than that. So one thing we can do to get started is copy paste. And from here, some options I'm thinking just to give myself a little bit of variety is to change some of the notes in the melody, or maybe even change one of the chords a little bit. I think overall this second time around, maybe I want a lot of the notes to be higher pitched, just to give it the feeling that the song started here and now it's going here. I like that a lot. I'll probably keep it. Maybe I'll have this one go up a little bit. And this collection of notes, it does jump around a little bit, but if you look, E, G, B, that's just our chord. And I think you'll notice a lot when you're writing music that you'll find these chords everywhere. If you're just letting your ear guide you towards what you think sounds good, I think you will find that a lot of what you come up with makes a lot of sense. And for these last 2 bars, I might do something different with the melody, something that gives it more of a sense of motion. So probably faster note values. Let's see what that sounds like. And now here what I've done is I have the same pitch repeated 3 times in a row, which I have not done at all. I've not repeated any notes. So this is definitely a unique moment in the song. It's kind of special. It's probably leading somewhere new. Anytime you add in subtle variety like that, it's going to signal to the listener that something's going to change. And it's little details like this that help your piece move forward and make people want to keep listening to it and make you want to keep writing it, which is the most important thing. So I've decided that this is kind of the spot where something special is about to start happening. So I'm going to do something new. I'm going to make the rate at which my chords change speed up a little bit. And now here I've written down these notes really quickly, And this is where music theory starts to become really helpful. I know that this is an A minor chord, I know that this is an E major chord, and I know that those two pair together really well. But if you didn't know music theory, what you would do is just kind of move notes around, experiment until you found something that you did like the sound of. And I do think if you had kind of an idea in your head of what you wanted this to sound like, that you would eventually arrive at this conclusion. But music theory definitely speeds up the process. So here I've had more motion than I have pretty much any other point in the song, so I'm going to bring the motion down in these two bars just to give that feeling of contrast. And then these chords were kind of funky, they were new. This E major chord I hadn't done previously in the song, so I'm going to repeat it just so that way it's a little bit more familiar to the listener. I think there needs to be something to lead from this bar into that bar better. Yeah, maybe that one. And at this point, just for the sake of the video, I'm gonna wrap up the song. It's very common to end the song on the chord that you started on. So I started on A minor, the A, C, E. So that's where I'm gonna end. But ordinarily, I'd keep writing a little bit more after this. I'd have different harmonies thrown in. I'd have a different melody. I would repeat some things from earlier in the song. And it can be helpful to kind of think of composing as writing a book. You start out by introducing the reader to the characters, to the environment that you're in. There's a little bit of trouble, some sort of conflict that needs to be resolved. And in a lot of classic stories, we like to leave the reader in a place where all of their most important questions are resolved. If we want to give them that feeling of resolution, we will end on the chord that we started on. All right, let's listen to it, see how it sounds. And to my ears, that ending that I tacked on is really the only thing that I don't enjoy about the piece, but the rest of it I'm pretty happy with. And again, music theory knowledge is helpful, but when you're first starting out, your ear is going to be your greatest source of information. If you hear something that you don't like, change it. If you change it and you like it even less, change it again. And when you think about it, music came before music theory. So it's totally fine to give writing music a try, even if you don't really feel like you know what you're doing. Hopefully this was helpful just to get yourself started. I'll try to do more in the future to help take you through the process, but keep on writing and trying out new things on your own. Bye!